We told you we're going to get you on here, so I guess it worked out. So the first item on the agenda is approval of the report from June 24th, 2024 Historic Preservation Commission meeting. And those minutes were emailed to you, or you've got a printed copy. Dennis, you were here, so you probably recognize what that was. It was approval of the UWM and a few other things like that. So, moved by Dennis. Do we have a second by Bill? To approve the minutes as presented from June 24th. Any questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you. Number 2, presentation by UWM for intensive survey of historical and cultural resources. And so step up to the podium there, and I'm sure the microphone is on. If not, just push a little button there and you'll be on, and we'll be excited to hear from you. That sounds great. Thank you.
Good. I am not with UWM. My name is Jason Tisch.
Right.
I am the Certified Local Government Program Coordinator with the State Historic Preservation Office. And I'm just going to start out before handing it over to UWM, Kelly with UWM. And I just want to say a few things about the survey and our role in what's in making that happen. My office provided the funding for this survey through a certified local government grant. The city of Wisconsin Rapids is a certified local government. You all applied for the grant and got the grant to do this survey. The previous survey that you did, citywide survey, was in 1996, as you probably know. That survey identified there are 263 properties in our database now from that survey, and probably some smaller roadway or power line surveys that come through here and there. But we have 263 properties identified in our database. 3 of those are listed in the National Register. That comes from the, wait a second, I'm sorry, I read my notes wrong, I apologize. The 263 are properties that were identified in that 1996 survey. No, I'm sorry, I read my notes wrong again. I apologize, I'm going to start over. That survey in 1996 identified 79 properties that are eligible for the National Register. 79 properties that are eligible for the National Register. Out of those 263 that survey identified, 79 are eligible for the National Register. 6 historic districts that survey identified as potentially eligible for the National Register. Since then, there have been 3 individual properties actually listed in the National Register. So as of now, you all have a lot of potentially eligible individual properties and historic districts that could be listed in the National Register. And the benefit of that, of course, is tax credits for the owners. It brings a lot of tax credit financing to the building stock here. So there's a lot of eligible properties out there, at least from the 1996 survey. This survey will likely affirm most or all of those, at least the ones that are still present, if they haven't been demolished. So why do communities like this do a survey? It's really a planning document. It might seem like nice information to have about what's historic out in the community, but it's really a planning document. It tells you which properties have historic significance related to the history of the community. It's a map of properties that would be eligible for tax credits again. What's included in a survey? So a survey identifies, it's a combination of a windshield survey, so the surveyors will drive every street in the city, look at every property in the city, and evaluate it on the very basic criteria for National Register eligibility. Is it 50 years old or older? And in a survey like this, we usually go 40 years, just so the data doesn't get old too fast. So is it 40 years old or older, and does it have enough integrity to be eligible? In other words, does it have its original materials, its original design, its historic character? So all of those are brought into the survey. Then the consultant does some basic baseline research on those properties and identifies those maybe top 10, 5 or 10% of those properties that are actually eligible for the National Register. What happens during a survey? I think I'm just going to let Kelly address that, and what does it mean to, if your building is included in the survey. I'm going to turn over to Kelly and talk more about what the consultant does and what ends up in the survey and how they do it.
Thanks, Jason.
Hello? How's that?
Great.
How do we cast here?
Desktop, 2, council chamber, and you're up.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Kelly Blabach. I'm an architectural historian with University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee Cultural Resource Management. I'm the lead historian on this project, and I'll be doing the survey fieldwork as well as most of the research for this project. I work with Gail Klein and Justin Miller, and they'll be helping out as needed. So if you see those names also bantered around, it's all UWM CRM. So as Jason mentioned, there's been a previous survey in the city of Wisconsin Rapids done in 95 and 96. Because the 50-year cutoff at that time was 1945, properties younger than that, up to like post-World War and mid-century, were not generally included in the survey. So this particular project seeks to rectify that and expand upon that. What that means is that we will be both updating the results of the 95, 96 survey and adding a lot of historic context in terms of architectural styles and historic themes to that document to help provide a historic basis on which to look at and think about these properties and their eligibility for the National Register. What that means for us is we start with the Wisconsin Historic Preservation Database, which you can see here. And here it pops up that there were, as Jason said, 263 properties identified both in the 1995-96 survey and in subsequent identification efforts as a result of like roadwork projects or things of that nature. And as he said, 3 have been listed on the National Register. The whipped here can show us also how many have been demolished. That number right now is 11. We'll probably find a lot more as we survey in the field. And over 100 as potentially eligible. So right now, our first step will be to do that survey in the field, up and down every single road, rephotographing and redocumenting each and every property that's been previously surveyed. And we will update these records in WIPT with new photos, new addresses. Like you can see the first one on here just has northeast corner of 8th and Grand. That's, we're going to put addresses so people can more easily find them. The second part will be to update the survey itself, pull forward that time until 1985. That's our cutoff date. It's 40 years. We do 40 years instead of 50 with intensive surveys so that the results of the survey aren't immediately obsolete. Although generally still a property must be 50 years old to be eligible for listing, unless it's a particularly special property. after we identify all historic properties, and survey all the properties in the city, what we'll be doing then is taking a close look at them, seeing if they're architecturally significant, checking in the integrity of each property, as Jason mentioned, and in this case, also looking at any associations the property might have with historic events or significant people within the history of the city. Our research will help us identify the potentially eligible properties that remain. And once we have that information, we will schedule a site visit with the SHPO, and they will come and they will drive to all the properties that we have identified as potentially eligible and say yes, no, and that will be the results of the survey. The final document that we will produce will be called the intensive survey. It will include the findings that have been vetted by SHPO, which properties are potentially eligible and which are not. And it will also include those historic themes that we research and write up about the history, commercial history, governmental history, entertainment history, logging history of Wisconsin Rapids. And that will be the final document that we produce. I'd like to open it up for questions, but first I do actually have a request for any local historian, really. The challenge of a project like this, where we're looking at more recent history, is that most people don't think of it as history, right? So traditional research locations, like published histories of the city, really are going to end, at World War II. So that doesn't help us in determining historic associations and significance. So who knows the history better of a city than people like you? And so if you have any knowledge that you don't think would show up in our research, we'll be doing extensive research. But if there's anything, hidden gems that maybe wouldn't be readily identifiable to us, or information you think might not be common knowledge, please reach out and let me know, because that's how we're going to find a lot of these interesting, significant. And I will provide my business card to all who want it. Does anybody have any questions?
There are two people I know that could help you with that. They're not in the city itself, but they serve the Southwood County Historical Museum.
Yeah.
One is by the name of Phil Brown. He's the vice president of the Southwood County Historical Museum. And the other one is Dave Engel. I believe at one time
That's a familiar name, yeah.
he was a city historian, and he's wrote extensively on Rapids history, but those are the two I know.
Okay, great, thanks.
Kelly, question, are we going to have a public hearing on this at some point?
There's a closing meeting at the end of the process where we present our findings. Jason will be there again, probably, and we talk about how the intensive survey can be used by you going forward.
Kyle, do that here or the library, or what do you, where you want to do this, probably? I know it's a little bit ahead, it's probably a year ahead of time, but.
We can try to be more proactive in engaging with the public, providing notice, and, a meeting such as that we'd like to record, ideally, to make it available to members of the public. This is the easiest and best venue to do it, but I know we can do it at other venues and have the capability to remote record things.
Right.
But yes, we will be sure we can try to invite members of the public and maybe even send notices to
People in those
some of the
districts or
neighborhoods.
something?
Yep, right.
Yeah.
Either through their water bills or something,
Yeah.
ahead of time.
That'd be kind of nice, then we get you won't get a great turnout, but maybe you get, 5 or 10%, which is good, out of those sort of things. There's some people that are certainly interested in this, and other people that, whatever. I mean, you've run into that, Kelly, I'm sure, all the time, and Jason, too, so. But if we make it more public, then certainly there'd be more opportunity for people to get involved and know that there is a Historic Preservation Commission and that we're looking towards this identification and enrolling more people, hopefully in the National Register and State Register, so, yeah. And Bill gave you the best two people, I think, that are around, both, one is, both of them are not residents of the city, so that they can't really be here in a official role, but they certainly can be helpful in pointing things out to you and that sort of thing. So,
Thanks, I appreciate that. Any other questions? Sure.
Is there anything we as a commission are going to have to do before the final results come out so we can kind of think ahead?
I don't believe so. Jason?
No, I mean, the best thing you can do is to let people know that it's happening. And then when we do when we share the results at a public info session at the end of the survey, the best thing you can do there, again, is let people know that it's happening and why the city is doing it, and get people interested in seeing the results.
yeah, I think that Bill and I are especially well-suited for that because we're involved in two biggest historic organizations in the area, so I guess if we can get the word out in our own organizations, and that should be helpful for people that are interested in history anyway, so, yeah, thank you.
And to that end, actually, when I'm actually out in the field doing the survey, I have a camera and I'm walking up and down streets. So just by dint of taking pictures of people's houses, a lot of people might come out and ask what I'm doing. And so we're always prepared to answer those questions about the process and what it is that we're looking at. And so that kind of will happen naturally, too.
Yeah, Kelly, are you hopefully identified, so you got a badge on or
Yes, I'll
something?
have a vest.
So they don't think
I'll
it's...
have a vest, I'll have
Yeah, okay.
like something on my car. Yes, we're fully
Yeah,
identified.
otherwise people might get the wrong idea or something that, the
yeah,
city's
no.
reassessing, but they already did that, so they're not going to do that again, so.
Yes.
Kevin, you have a question?
After you have identified the properties, will you be seeking or requesting, I should say, entry to inspect interior structure, things like that?
Private buildings, no. Public buildings like a post office or city hall or like a church that are publicly open, we will try and go inside. And of course, we'll be fully identified and ready to answer any questions. But private properties, no.
Any other questions? Kyle, Elizabeth, anything you have? Jason, anything we forgot?
On that last point about entry into buildings, I'll also emphasize that surveyors do all of their survey from the public right-of-way. They don't step foot on private property at all.
Okay.
True.
That's probably got to do with the Wisconsin's gun laws. Are you going to start this fall? Kelly, what's your
Yes.
timetable?
Once we get our mapping in order in our offices, hopefully I'll be able to hit that sweet spot of weather where the leaves have fallen, but the snow has not fallen yet.
So probably somewhere end of October, first part of November, something
I
like that.
hope so, yes. I mean, sometimes the weather is the weather, right? But
Right,
that's what we'll aim for.
okay, good, good. I guess if there's no other questions, I'd like to thank Kelly and Jason for coming and with help with the presentation, and we look forward to working with UWM and State Historical and, and pushing this forward, and so that we have a new survey, a 24-25 survey that will do the stead for us for the next 20, 25 years or whatever. So thank you very much for coming.
Great, thank you.
Anything else, Kyle? Could I make a suggestion maybe for you or Elizabeth, maybe to contact some of these to make sure we have a quorum, because this is the second time now we haven't had a quorum. We had
Yeah,
we got Dennis drafted and a few other things, but it'd be better to probably know in advance.
Before we schedule meetings, we make sure we have 4, so always a +1.
Right,
And I believe we had the 4 prior to scheduling the meeting. So
Okay. And that-
that's our protocol. I can't,
you can't speak for the people.
obviously, things come up, people
Right.
have lives. Ryan, I guess, was double booked.
Yeah.
But we do have the ability, if we know he's booked, to request him prior, maybe designate another alder in his stead,
Right.
such as Dennis. So we will keep that in mind moving forward.
And could there be a dual designation for like the council representative like Ryan is, that if he can't make the meeting, that Dennis could be automatically, we won't have to get him sworn in or something like that?
It cannot, but I can try to have another conversation with Ryan on his ability to attend regularly.
Maybe we know in advance so that we can have it
Sure.
taken care of.
Right.
Right. Because it's kind of, I don't think it bothers Bill and I so much, but for people coming from out of town and everything, it'd certainly
Sure.
be nice to know that it's going to happen or not happen, so. And that's maybe why we're the forgotten committee in the city, so, I don't know. So, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment, if it's in order. Bill? Dennis will second. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Thank you very much.